Hi, my name is Katie Schiller. I'm a math student at North Carolina State University, and today we'll be talking about the book Culturize, Every Student, Every Day, Whatever It Takes, by Jimmy Casas. This book has a lot of personal vignettes within it, either from the author himself, from his background, or relayed by other educators that he incorporates into the discussion. But the book opens with a chapter called Just Talk to Me. And he recounts a personal story from when he was just 17 years old. He admits he was a terrible student. Academics were really terrible, but he was on the varsity baseball team and he felt like he had an identity there and he was kind of a star there. And he had an injury that sidelined him. And in that struggle to overcome that injury and to come back, he just really didn't have the emotional and social maturity to handle the situation. And he decided that it would just be simpler if he quit the team. And his parents allowed him to quit the team, and his baseball coach allowed him to quit the team. And on the day that he turned in his baseball jersey, when what he wanted his coach to do was wrap his arm around him and say, "Jimmy, I've been there too. I know this is hard. I know you're struggling. Let's try to figure this out." His coach said something different. He said nothing, and he walked away. And Jimmy talks about how he just cried for hours afterwards, and it just deeply impacted him well into his adult years. So what does it mean to culturize? To cultivate a community of learners by behaving in a kind, caring, honest, and compassionate manner in order to challenge and inspire each member of the school community to become more than they ever thought possible. The author goes on speaking circuits talking to educators, but he talks about the fact that culturizing is not limited to an educational setting. This is something that any organization, business, social, charitable organization should be using within the organization, kind of a top-down structure, the whole across the board, to develop better leadership, better skills, better connection to people. But within the community of schools, he goes around and he talks to education professionals and he asks them, what are the biggest obstacles to creating and cultivating great schools? And most cite things like standardized testing, micromanagement from administration, poor parenting. He believes that lack of leadership is the single greatest obstacle to cultivating great skills. And when he goes around and he says this, he says he can tell the teachers from the administrators, because the administrators all look sort of sullen, and the teachers are standing on, get to their feet and they're clapping and cheering when they say it's the lack of leadership. And he's like, no, guys, I hate to break it to you. It's every single one of you. It's the collective. It's that lack of leadership from the collective, teachers and administrators. Teachers have to strive for more than technical excellence. A good test score or, a nice academic product from your students is not enough. There must be a culture and community that goes above average. He talks a lot about don't settle for average, and that just having a leadership title does not mean you're the only leader. Lacking of a leadership title still means you are a leader within schools. So in order to cultivate this positive school culture, he has identified 4 core principles. The first is be the champion for all students. Then expect excellence. Third is carry the banner. And fourth is to be a merchant of hope. On principle number 1, be a champion for all students, he believes that teachers have to have this unwavering belief in their students, because our belief in students becomes their belief in themselves. And so you can't say, this kid's hopeless. You can't say, this is too hard. You have to continue to be the champion for every single student that walks through your door. And you have to focus intensely on building relationships with students. And they can't be surface relationships, and they can't be one-sided. It can't be the student telling you everything and you don't relay that. You don't reciprocate that connection. You have to be open to your students. They have to be open to you. And above and beyond that, you have to foster connections and relationships between other students. And he says students are hindered by the lack of the 3 C's: lack of connection, lack of feeling capable and that they get from us, and lack of confidence inside of themselves. And he recounts one time when he was in a classroom setting and his vice principal said, "Hey, Jimmy, everyone has a savior, but it's not going to always be you." but that's never a reason to not try. Even if you're not feeling successful, like you're not connecting with a student, you don't get to say, well, I'm never going to connect with that kid. I'm going to just stop trying. Every single day, every single student, you need to be working to make that connection. Principle 2 talks about expecting excellence. And in the education setting, when we hear expecting excellence, we usually think of an academic output. But here he's really talking about leadership. And he's talking about building capacity within the school. Teachers need to feel empowered to act. If teachers are asking permission to do something, then you have not built capacity within the school for leadership and excellence. And he talks about doing simple things that are part of excellence every single day, not shying away from trying something new. Don't wait for others to fix it. You have to do it yourself. Enjoy what you do. Be clear and concise. Give people hope and set long-term goals. And even in the face of obstacles, you need to stay the course and complete those long-term goals. And he talks about building a yes culture. That's also part of the book. But he also says educators in a leadership role, and that's everyone, have to be willing to say no and doing the right thing, not the easy thing. So even in the face of pressure, if there's something that you see that is not serving your students and is not serving the community, you need to be prepared to step in and say no. And excellent leaders can never take things personally or hold grudges against students or colleagues. You have to be ready to, take the hard hits and move forward. Talks about principle number 3, carry the banner. And this is sort of that outward view as a teacher. He talks about not only are you an ambassador for your school, but you're an ambassador for your district and the teaching profession as a whole. He has a long list of things that teachers should model. I've included a few here, but you need to model a love for learning. You need to model risk-taking and empathy. And again, he's got a lengthy list of the things that you really should be modeling to carry the banner effectively as a teacher. And he talks about remembering. You teach children, you don't teach content. If the children are not connecting to the content, you don't need to worry about the content. You need to worry about the children. You need to always be focused on building your students up. And he talks about really stepping in and correcting misconceptions. If you're out at a dinner party, if you're out and about and you hear people talking about the state of schools and the state of teachers and it's not reflecting what you're seeing in the schools, he's saying you need to go ahead and step up and carry that banner and correct those misconceptions, because you should take pride in the education system, pride in being a teacher. Even if it's not perfect and we can acknowledge that it's not perfect, there are things that you're always working towards making more perfect, and you need to correct those misconceptions. And he talks about creating opportunities for your students to shine. You are carrying the banner for the school, and part of that is carrying the banner for your students. And if you're making those connections and you're creating excellent opportunities for them to be the highlight and the best ambassador for the education system, then you're doing it right. And he talks about aiming to influence and inspire others in positive ways, but it's this outward projection of excellence to the world. And then principle number 4 is to be a merchant of hope. He talks a lot about how the schools that he has taught in have had students who have had really challenging lives, whether it's substance abuse in the family, physical abuse, low socioeconomic situations, just things that really set these students up to struggle. You have to recognize that as the teacher, you may need to be the one to pick up the pieces for those students. You need to stay connected with the students long after they leave you, because some flowers are not going to bloom in that time that you have to tend the garden. But if you're connected to the students, they will come back when they graduate. They will come back when they go off to college, and they will tell you about the impact you had on them. And you need to keep those connections and stay connected. It will inspire you to continue to give hope to other students. And part of that hope is to remember how to choose how you respond to any circumstance so that they can respond in the same way. So if they see that you're dealing with a circumstance that's difficult and you're making positive choices, they will respond to circumstances similarly. And you have to use your own past struggles as a source of strength. And this goes back to connecting to students and them knowing you. It's okay to share the struggles that you had in your teachable moments to create teachable moments for your own students. As far as teaching strategies, this book doesn't have necessarily very finite teaching strategies, but he has what he calls culture builders at the end of each chapter. And I've included several of the culture builders here, ways to incorporate important things into your school culture. So recognizing what's going well and praising those positive efforts, changing adult behavior so that students are seeing that modeled for them, how you can make an improvement just through changing your behavior. Reach out and call someone. There's a lot of talk within the book about making those connections with family members as well, making connections with your colleagues and working constructively in a critical way to highlight what's not working and how can we improve this. He talks about boosting your school as a sanctuary. Every greeting is sincere. Every day the students feel welcome, that your school is a safe haven and a sanctuary for them. And to go beyond checking the boxes, take professional development and team building to a whole new level. Do not settle for status quo. He also talks about telling your school story, being active on social media to promote the positive culture in your school, and holding student interviews so that you get to know them and asking those deeper questions, and developing home mentor visit programs so that there's personalized connections, there's personal invitations. And then one that he really is aiming towards administrators is that teacher call. And he said, this is not what you're expecting. He's like, I want administrators to call the parents of their staff teachers and to thank them for raising fine educators and mentors. And so if you can incorporate, come up with all these ways that you can add to a positive culture in your school, you're going to see the results in the students. You're going to have those deeper connections. It's going to impact your ability to stay the course. So I'm going to leave you with one final piece. The leadership is not just about how we behave when we know what to do. Rather, it's seen in the actions we take when we don't know what to do. And so that was a summary of the book Culturize. But if you would like to find out more, please, by all means, go get the book yourself and read through it. There's a lot of personal and inspiring stories in there that can motivate you, especially on any day you might feel drained. But it's motivating you to do more than the average, to always continue pushing hard to make the most of your teaching career and to build your students and your community. Thank you.